Hey, kids, how would you like to hear this on the screen instead of the great show you came to see? That's what you sound. Honest. Please cooperate and do your part in keeping this theater quiet. So everyone, including you, can enjoy.
Music. Analog.
Dun-dun-dun-dun, intro.
Yeah.
Welcome in. What up? What's happening? Welcome to another Mailbag Wednesday edition of the DNVR show on Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube here at DNVR Nuggets. I'm your host today, Brendan Vogt. I'm joined by my usual panel of colleagues and co-hosts, really. Hope everyone's doing all right. It's been a crazy morning. I know America's just trying to collect themselves after that ShamWow. Some crazy news to break there from Shamstrana. So, Harrison Wind, how are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm doing great.
Horrible.
Ready for a mailbag, ready for lots of Jrue Holiday talk. What could be better than that?
I have a couple things that could be better.
Really? Hello, Wind. It's Adam Mara's there. Adam, how we doing?
I'm good. I don't see our podcast on Periscope.
I don't either, but it says
It says
live. So that's great.
Off to a hot start.
Par for the course. Also joining me, less concerned with the technical difficulties, ready to rock as always. It's D-Line Co. You may know him as Eric, though.
Very few do. Fewer and fewer by the day, it turns out. Yeah, man. I was up really late last night, guys. I don't know what you guys were up to. I'm pretty tired. I
did cranked out a 45-minute Peloton last night. Had a couple beers. It was a very relaxing night. No, just kidding. I tried to make it a relaxing.
Oh, there we go. We're up on Periscope. I told everyone that I was going to turn my phone off and play NCAA 14 for 12 hours. I made it 25 minutes in before I started watching ABC like a loser. So I've been sweating it out. I didn't sleep much either.
Yeah, it was a crazy. Last night was a very crazy night. Were you guys? We won't get too deep into any of the actual leanings of politics, but were you guys paying attention, or are you cognizant of the George W. Bush Al Gore election? Were you too young for this?
Yeah, I remember, of course.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. This definitely feels that way. Only the difference is now it's just like an information overload.
Yeah.
What I like about this is, like, no matter if we're talking politics, sports, or whatever, we could be like, back in the day, our elections, back the previous era's elections were better, man. Like,
no, they were much worse. I mean,
that contested election was way crazier, guys. So.
It's just that there wasn't the level of detail. It was just like a lot more of just being in the dark and like
True. I remember that.
Like, I mean, I was working on my computer all day in college, and I obviously it's like super distracted. And I just remember clamoring for any piece of information. Now there's just like unbelievably granular.
Now there's too much, and we're stoked to provide you something else to do, think about here for an hour. But fellas, we're also grateful to Shamstrani of The Athletic who dropped some NBA trade off-season news this morning. Producer Adam, if you can pull that tweet up if you got it.
Yeah, let me say I didn't realize I was doing that, but I will.
You know what? we wouldn't have it any other way.
Here it comes. Boom. Can you see that?
And there it is. The New Orleans Pelicans, I probably could have remembered this one by heart. The New Orleans Pelicans are openly discussing star Jrue Holiday in trade talks, and several contending teams are pursuing. At this point, we assume / know the Denver Nuggets are one of those teams. So we've got 2 to 3 questions here, guys, that I think this tweet begs. And so I'll go to Wind here on this first one. I had some Nuggets fans, some followers ask me this morning, why might New Orleans be doing this? They like this new head coach hire. They might feel that they're close to the playoffs and can maybe sort of toe that line of doing both, bringing this young talent in while staying relevant. So are you surprised, Win, to see this report?
A little bit, because if you remember, after they hired Stan Van Gundy, there was a bit of a narrative out there that, they're going to be running it back. But I feel like if New Orleans really looked itself in the mirror, and now it probably had a few weeks to do that, they probably know they're not contending next season. Jrue Holiday is pretty much on an expiring deal. He's got a player option for next year. This would be the time to get something for him if they were going to deal him. So it's a bit of a reversal, but I'm not surprised that they're looking to trade him. This seems like the direction we've been heading with Jrue Holiday for like the last year. So if you would have asked me like a year ago, if we were going to get to this point eventually, I would have said, yeah.
I think it might be simpler than that. It's a couple things. First of all, I'm not surprised by this. There's all these reports that come out during a season. There's something that comes out in the bubble. There's something that comes out immediately after, before you can actually begin the real trade season, the real like conversations. And, of course they were always going to posture this as like they want to keep him, and they might end up keeping him still. But if Jrue Holiday, this version of him, 30-year-old Jrue Holiday, was on the Denver Nuggets of 2017, and I don't think that Nuggets fans would have been like, oh, yeah, keep him this or that. I think people knew there was a timeline, like maybe it's better to collect assets and do this thing. So it always made sense. And then secondly, this season, I put this out on Twitter, they are doing a seeding round, or I'm sorry, a play-in tournament. Teams that are in the 7 seed through the 10 seed almost certainly are going to have to play against each other. So now the difference between trying to say, hey, we have to race to get into the 8 seed or 7 seed maybe is a little bit diluted, because now it's, hey, we just have to get a race to the 10 seed. And not just that, also when you think about like your fan base has to be connected this year, I think every team in the West, their fan base is going to be connected for 95% of the season, because most teams will be competitive right up until the end for the 10th seed. Maybe they wouldn't have been for the 8th seed, but for the 10th seed. So you have Jrue Holiday or you don't. I think New Orleans has reasons to compete and will be able to compete for that 10th seed and get into the, I'll call them the playoffs. The play-in round is kind of like the playoffs.
And, I bring up this comment because I saw Bronco Scotch made a really good point on Twitter too. Like, this is also to get butts in the seats, right, and drive jersey sales, having stars in town. If there was ever a year where that stuff was sort of less relevant or sort of less likely to be a big win anyway for an organization like New Orleans, it's right now. And so maybe you just keep the asset young talent train moving, because what is a star like Jrue getting you, especially when you consider Adam's point, which is you might still be able to get the playoff hype going anyway with this new format. Eric, do you have any thoughts on this, brother?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, my dog's squeaking his toy, so I keep looking. To me, it's just like a classic like timeline. Do you hear that?
That's awesome.
It's like super loud. It's just like a classic timeline's not matching up, and they're looking at it. They're like, what do we need? Like when we had Gallo, and it's like, this is our leading scorer. We have this young surge of players coming through. This is sort of the old guard, and the old guard didn't get it done. Now it's time to like really turn the corner. Zion's going to be our future. We have all of these draft picks already. Like, it's absolutely, you got to, like you're saying, like they've had time to sort of sit and think about it. You don't like the idea of getting rid of a player that people like, and Jrue Holiday, being a coveted player, like makes you feel good that you have him on your team right now. But I'm going to go steal it from him as soon as I finish this very salient point. Anyway, it's I get it. It makes sense. Like they should absolutely move, and they should move to the Nuggets. It's pretty simple.
Well, that's a good segue there, Eric, and so is this comment, because the next question I wanted to ask you, we'll move on from why to what. If we assume Denver is in this conversation, what trades do we think might get it done? And what's the line in the sand for us sort of individually and collectively here as we try to figure out the framework of that deal? So Win, sort of two-parter to you, I guess. What do you think it will take, and how willing are you to make that move?
First off, what does New Orleans covet more? Do they covet young players? Do they covet draft picks? If you're looking to get a deal done with Denver, like, if I'm New Orleans, I'm definitely asking for 2 firsts, and like Gary Harris and Monte Morris. I know that's like the popular deal out there, but if I'm New Orleans, I can probably get a better deal somewhere else. Brooklyn seems like they're interested. Caris LeVert seems to be the main package there. I'm not the highest on Caris LeVert by any means, but it seems like the rest of the league is pretty high on him. So I wonder.
Hold on a second. The rest of the league. Who are we talking about?
just trade packages that are out there.
People, no, because this is my point. Is that I feel like this conversation has really devolved into what the Twitter bloggers, writers, like general groupthink is. My personal opinion is that I think people are way off on Caris LeVert's value, Jrue Holiday's value, having 1 year left on his deal, and just like kind of the player that he is, who I think is a fantastic. I mean, I love Jrue Holiday. I think he's incredible. But I don't. The way people are talking about these packages, I'm like, this is just such a classic setting up New Orleans fans to be disappointed in what they're going to get for this, and people to be so surprised by the deal that comes back. I don't think that this is going to be that like home run deal that. I just think the conversation around it is kind of absurd to me. It's kind of crazy.
But this is what happens. A package gets thrown out there, and then it gets whittled down to something less than that as the trade gets closer. That's what usually happens in these deals for like all-star caliber players.
This reminds me more than any trade. This reminds me of the Paul George to Oklahoma City deal. If you remember when Paul George was people would have thought, oh, Paul George, he's got maybe Kevin Durant, you trade him for that, or maybe you can get 5 first-round picks or this or that. They ended up getting Sabonis. They ended up getting Oladipo. And I remember people saying, oh, what a horrible trade. A bunch of young players that we haven't heard of because in Oklahoma City. And, oh, look at or Orlando or wherever they were coming from. And look at what a terrible deal was. Turned out to be a great deal because guess what? Those players that were being talked about are way better than people think. They just a lot of the people who are talking about this publicly now, your writers, your podcasters, your Twitter people, a lot of those people are looking at Gary Harris's 3-point percentage, for example, and saying, oh, not a good player. Nobody wants him. He's a negative asset. I just don't think that's true. Now, I don't know if Denver's going to make a deal, but I just don't think that Jrue Holiday is going to command this like superstar package that people expect.
I never said a superstar package. I said 2 first-round picks.
I'm not – it sounds like I'm coming at you because I'm so – but I'm not
fired up.
Yeah, because I'm fired up. I just like for weeks I've been seeing this. Meanwhile, when I talk to people with teams or with from other teams, they're like, yeah, it's the same thing with the Jeremy Grant conversation. A couple weeks ago, people were like, man, he might get $20 million. Like crazy guys. These are good players. They're not like.
But we can work backwards from the knowledge that the Nuggets almost certainly are not, including Michael Porter Jr. I mean, certainly in these conversations. And so if Brooklyn were to make a sort of Godfather offer, which wouldn't really be outside of their DNA since the stars arrived, LeVert, Allen, and a first-round pick, while the skill set match up there, right, with the roster in place, we can point at it and say it's not perfect. I still think it's far more aggregate talent.
Do you think Jared Allen fits there?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
But I think the way that the conversation has gotten to this place because in a 2K vacuum or something, right? There's more aggregate talent there. But I would follow that up by saying don't sleep on New Orleans' interest in a player like Gary. He makes sense there, and to your point, Adam, that just because like us in Denver might be out on Gary doesn't mean a team like New Orleans doesn't see a lot of value or utility there.
Oh, I've made this argument about Gary multiple times. He is the exact type of player that New Orleans should want in terms of like a veteran who's been around the block, who's a great locker room guy, who can lead a little bit by example, who's going to be no drama, and is still a starter level guy. He's actually the type of like personality that New Orleans should covet.
It's kind of interesting though. Like if you think about, that's kind of who they'd be shipping out with Jrue Holiday, who's that type of player. To bring Gary back in feels like a step down. The real question I'm curious is how. I'm just worried. I'm curious how fears about money play into the willingness to trade versus try to court free agents. Like if you can just kind of move books around and move numbers around without having to make big financial commitments when things are so uncertain, it feels like front offices would be more apt to do that. I can see like there being a lot of in-league movements versus just like guys being, wined and dined, champagne and campaigning this year just because we don't know what the money's going to look like,
Are you just talking about specifically with Denver, like maybe being more willing to trade than to try to pursue a free agent?
I just think front offices in general, I feel like would be, before they'd be like, well, we do want to change our team, and we were kind of thinking maybe we would try to pay a player to come in. Maybe that's less likely. Maybe it makes more sense to use assets that have relative value instead of assigning absolute value to a player when things are so up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I do think we'll see names like Holiday, Beal, Levine. I think we're going to hear plenty about them this year for more than one reason. Does anyone disagree with Wynn's framework, though? Because I do think that is sort of the package, if you're Denver, that you hope gets it done. I think it might get it done, depending on what other teams offer. And does that seem like too much for you guys? I mean, Adam, do you have thoughts on the framework?
So it was Gary, Monte, and 2 firsts, or was that it? Yeah. I think it probably includes 1 first in Bowl. I mean, I just think that, and by the way, I think a Bowl Zion fit is obviously like an extremely risky fit because Bowl hasn't like proven himself or anything.
That
but
would be incredible.
But it's such a like if you want to talk about just what you want to get excited about if you're a fan base, that's like that's right up there with something that would be fun. Again, I don't know if that gets it done. I just think that that's probably Denver's value offer. Like if they start going above those offers, I don't think it makes sense. So I don't know if it makes sense because it just might sometimes trade ideas don't work between 2 teams, and maybe that's it. But to me, that would probably be more in line with fair value for 1 year of a non-all-star but very talented and dynamic piece.
Yeah, then Denver's in a really nice place because Denver's in a great place because they don't have to do anything, right? Like they're not in a place where it's like we are a fundamentally flawed team and we have to fix it by getting this type of player. Like it's not unthinkable that the Nuggets could get to where they were and maybe even rise above it just through simple maturation and another year of coming together. Like, so they're in a position where they can wait for a good deal, and if it doesn't come, they can just move along and not bother with it.
But that, let's just say hypothetically that New Orleans is interested in that package. That is that good deal. Like if you can add a player of Holiday's caliber and quality without shaking up your core, without touching MPJ, right?
2 firsts though. 2 firsts is like
I would do at this point. I would do it in a heartbeat, man. Especially after the last 3 weeks of covering this late first round draft pick. It's like there's a lot of ifs and buts for stuff that's I just don't think is going to swing many needles. Versus Jrue, Denver has a window now, and Jrue Holiday is a high quality player that I think makes them a considerably better team right away.
So is it, in your mind, is it this year's first and then next year's first, or like a first down the line, or is it like a provisional first? Like what in your mind would make that happen? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. I guess I hadn't thought of that specifically and what New Orleans would covet there. But
the next couple drafts are supposed to be fantastic, and that's what I mean. I don't mean it as just in it's a good draft. It's going to be the 25th pick or whatever. No, it sounds like it's going to be kind of a double draft, or there's going to be a lot of talent coming out of these ones. So. There is something to be said for trading away multiple draft assets, but at the same time, Denver has to decide if they are at the point to push chips in and become less flexible. The thing with Jrue Holiday that's so scary, I mean, he's the thing that I think bumps his value up even more than what he is as a player. And again, I think he's a fantastic player. People hear me say like it's 1 year of a non-all-star. They're like, oh, you don't know how good Jrue Holiday is. I do. I just know that I'm also not lying when I say he's a non-all-star.
Literally.
And the other thing is he has 1 year on his deal. It's so easy, I think, for people to say like, oh, Denver needs to push their chips in. We're going to talk about it here in a minute, but I don't know if that means you win. That's maybe not a winning hand that you push all of that in and you get it. I think it's really good and it gets you awfully close. So high character guy, I think really good fit. I think it elevates Denver quite a bit, but by no means a sure thing that Denver should trade the farm for.
I guess I just don't know if I would consider that pushing the chips in. I mean, it's an aggressive move, but those are the types of moves that we're talking about, getting an organization to the finals for the first time. So, I mean, I think if you can make an aggressive shakeup move where you leave those 4 guys alone,
right? So you're saying
great shape.
Bowl, Monte, and Gary?
I would say 2 firsts or Bowl. I don't know how New Orleans views Bowl. They have their own chance to pick him, right? So
I don't either. Yeah.
So who knows what they care more? But I would feel comfortable there. It's a risk, but Denver also is at risk of being in the latest in line of many teams who thought, well, we'll wait for our home run, and then that window shut.
One trade that third thrown around. Oh, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the flip side of that coin is they could be another team that pushed their chips in and didn't, and ultimately like Philadelphia that just derailed what they had building. I mean, it's a very slippery slope, and you have to make sure that you don't give up too much just because you like the idea of being able to get a guy that could potentially make you better now, because it's all theoretical. Like players on paper, sometimes you bring them in, they don't actually make you better, right?
I just think as long as you're confident in retaining those top two guys, and MPJ's there at least for the first early stage of his career, there's going to be more paths. I don't know if you, Monte and Gary are.
I think what I'm pushing back on most is I don't know if I could justify 2 first-round picks for Jrue Holiday. Like that's too much.
I think where we screwed up here, Vote, is you're starting to tell me where you lean on this, because I thought we were going to save that for the end, because I'm not actually arguing with you. We were just talking about the idea of value. That's the only thing I'm trying to set the stakes for, is what it means to trade 2 draft picks on top of those players. Is it means that you become, I would say, pretty less flexible going forward, especially depending on your ability to retain Jeremy Grant, what that price point is, how movable he becomes, because you're not moving Jokic, you're probably not moving Murray. So then does that mean that your only asset left is MPJ on a rookie scale contract? That's your last bullet sort of in the chamber to move. That's all I was trying to get at. But you kind of already showed your hand about where you
showed your.
Well, yeah, you guys know where I stand now. Just discuss amongst yourselves.
One other thing, though, I do want to talk about is we saw Vinny Goodwill, who put out the idea that Denver was maybe considering trading Jeremy Grant and a sign and trade as part of that, like maybe swapping Jeremy Grant and Gary.
Well, that was one of our questions. So we can get to that in the questions. We can tackle it now, but for what it's worth, someone did ask. I listen. I mean, I think the natural place for this conversation to go is if you guys do think that that's the type of deal that can push Denver forward, and then from there, I think maybe we'll start to hit some of these questions. But I don't know if anyone disagree. It seems like some of you disagree with me, but to me, I don't know if you're going to find a better window. First of all, it's hypothetical. Don't know if this framework gets it done anyway. But is this the type of thing where it's time for Denver to make some sort of aggressive move? I think it might be the case.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that Jeremy Grant move. I saw that earlier, and I was like, oh, I could actually go for that. But then I thought about it more. I mean, my first inclination was that Jeremy Grant was not that impactful the entire season until that Lakers series, and then it was like, oh, we can't lose this guy. But then my second thought was like, oh, but that's the team we're going to try and have to get over, so you can't really get rid of the guy that helps you in that specific matchup. We weren't really getting, it's like, I guess
Denver would still have, for reference, Denver would probably almost certainly still have a mid-level exception to use, which they could pull in to replace that a very narrow part of what Jeremy Grant brought, just the length on defense. You could probably get somebody in that $9 million range that can guard your wings.
Yeah,
probably comes off the bench, but it becomes more of a specialist, but it's still there.
Yeah, that seems really risky for me. I don't really get the Jeremy Grant sign and trade thing. I just don't.
I mean, would that be the case where you've just lost confidence? Like, it seems like the other deals are past your line in the sand. I mean, I don't, but I'm with you. I'm not eager to make that move there. To me, the way I look at it and the reason I liked Wynn's trade is because I just think if there's a way where you can add a player who's that close to all-star level, I know he's not one, well, without touching the rest of that starting lineup, I just see that as a huge win. But
the other way to think about it is if you trade this year's first, which we've all kind of said, okay, probably not that big of an asset because it's not. I mean, maybe the Nuggets have their guy, but probably not. 22nd pick this year, probably not that big a deal. It's the next first, which you don't know and you probably can't protect. But here's the thing. If you do retain both, one of the things you ask is either he becomes a part of this team, which I think is unlikely. I mean, we just have to say less likely than it is likely at this point because we just haven't seen him. But either he becomes that, or maybe he could become just good enough to be as valuable as the 25th pick, which is what you were going to have anyway, and you could trade. Somebody just looks at that like, if right now somebody offered Bol, or for the 22nd pick, people would probably say, oh, I'd rather have Bol. Like, we've seen him play. He can do some things. So maybe that's the play here is you actually do have the opportunity to acquire a pick down the road because you have this other player. So to give my answer, though, to your question, I actually do. I was showing that I wouldn't earlier just because I wanted to frame what value was. But 2 firsts, Monte, Gary, I don't know if that matches up. If there's something else you have to kind of add to the pot to Keita Bates Diop or something to make it work.
No,
But that idea of those pieces, to me, it absolutely works. It's risky because Jrue Holiday probably is a 1-year thing, and then you have to figure out money with him and Michael Porter and all this other stuff, and I just don't think it would work. But I don't know. It's one really good year of Jrue Holiday. Maybe he takes his player option next year and you get 2 years of him. But to me, if they got Jrue Holiday and they had Michael Porter and Jokic and Murray and Grant, I would look at that Nuggets team and say they probably have the best odds to win a championship of any Nuggets team of all time, probably pretty comfortably.
I'd agree.
yeah.
I just can't decide if I'm offended by this or not. It says it's going up and down. It's a roller coaster.
Oh, wow. Look at this. Wow. You got to take it. I mean, you can't look at the value you get on Christian.
Yeah, that's great value.
And the upgrade.
It's incredible.
Hey, let's take a break, guys. When we come back, I'll pretend that comment didn't happen and we'll answer questions. Does that sound good?
We don't have any music for breaks. Can we just go straight to Can we do it? Can we not do it live?
Yeah. But now you know when you're listening and you're editing right here. This is where you'll put them in.
25-53. All right.
And we're back. Some more good questions from the good people of the DNVR Nuggets community.
Hold on a second. Would you say that it is time for a mailbag?
It is time for a mailbag. Sound effect. Air horn.
3 heads in a mailbag.
Some good stuff from the people today. Obviously, some Jrue-related questions are coming in. We'll try to get to it all. I don't know why I keep doing this. I'm going to start with Josh Barnett's question again. With Jrue possibly going east to Brooklyn, can you see a future where the East gets more star-heavy than the West? And does this help the Nuggets moving into contenders, considering the other top teams at the West aren't getting these next stars? How reasonable is this, and is this timeline in play? Anyone?
You got to throw it to vote to win.
Wind.
Stars going to the East. Yeah. What took so long? Look, if I was a free agent, of course, I would have been asking to go to the East a long time ago. It's like clearly the easier path, the path of least resistance. So yeah, like I'm not surprised, but you're looking at it. We don't know what's going to happen with Giannis, but you've got the Nets, who look like they could be a force for at least the next year or two. Boston probably not going anywhere, but still, like, you don't have the juggernauts there that you do in the West. So I mean, if I was a free agent over the last couple of years, I would be trying to go to the East to get to a championship. Now that could be happening, I guess.
Worked out for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. Do you guys have thoughts, or have you ever heard theories on why it seems as though the East is just perennially worse than the West at this point? Is it weather? Like, what are we talking about?
I think a part of it, and some people are going to roll their eyes at me, I think a part of it was the 10 years of futility of building something against LeBron, against the inevitability of probably being run through by LeBron. I really do. I think it held a lot of teams down. And there's been a cyclical effect since, in terms of, like, sort of on the fringe stars, guys like Jrue Holiday, or even Victor Oladipo now is considering his next move. They're just looking at like titles and success and better teams by being the finishing piece on good teams out West. So I think there's more than one factor, but I really do think part of it was actually LeBron.
There's a bunch of incompetence in the East, though. I mean, there's some of the worst organizations in all of the NBA that just happen to reside in the Eastern Conference. And then I think the other thing is there was an article by an economist. This was a while back, like 7 or 8 years ago. But there was an article about this just saying you've got a lot of competitive teams in the West, and then you've got the teams going up against all of those teams that are always bad and always get the top picks. If you look at any given year, how many times has the number one pick or the top best player in a draft ended up going to the Western Conference? I mean, just 2 years
Cleveland
ago,
got like 3 number 1 overall picks in like a 6-year span.
You got Zion, you got Luka, you had Bagley and Jaren Jackson. Like every year, you just keep getting all of the talent keeps going into the Western Conference. So I think it's more of a mix of you've got your Orlandos, you've got your Charlottes, you've got your New York Knicks, you've got all of these organizations that just are horribly managed, horribly owned. And they just are in that cycle of always being bad. And then on top of that, the West just keeps getting all of the talent, in part because players go West for free agency. They go to your LA and California markets. But then also because you just keep going there by the draft, because if you don't make the playoffs, like the Warriors were great, then they were bad 1 year and they get the number 2 pick. It's a cycle. It just keeps happening. And this year, Minnesota, Golden State, 1-2.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy. It's funny that that's just like a talking point that you can just always be like, well, the East is bad, so you probably want to go to the East. And it's like, wait, like, what? Aren't they also like professional? Like, why is that just like a given that the East just sucks forever?
Airflow just threw this one in. I think he's on like a 20-minute delay. That's like 20-minute delay.
Or he just showed up and he just assumed that we were, and you were right.
Yeah, safe assumption. Hey, let's move on to another question.
Let's move on to this one really quick because I liked it here. There's a big three. We have myself, of course, the Jokic of the group. Harrison.
Of course.
We're trying to figure out if Harrison, because he's so handsome, devilishly handsome, if he is the Michael Porter. And then, you got the shorter one, which is both. But there's just nothing here for Eric. We have to know what is it?
To figure out. Well, it's a big three. That's the problem. It's like on the fast food poll yesterday. We could only have a big four, so you immediately got kicked right out.
I
horribly egregious.
Thank you to the people for the support. There were so many people. The vote. I think I probably competed just on write-in votes. To be honest.
You didn't. Yeah, 3 people. Yeah. You're welcome, by the way, that I didn't put you in that poll.
Big Kanye vibe. Yeah, you didn't have to like. The nice thing is that you didn't have to, give an acceptance speech, or what do you call it when you give it up? Yeah, concession. A concession speech. In that case, a concession stand speech. You didn't have to give it. You were able to.
By the way, I'm bitter about this loss. Eric won. That's 2 weeks in a row where the all uniform lineup. I won with all chocolate. Eric won with all beef. And I just want all you people complaining about variety in the comments.
Yeah, so vote.
You are the left-leaning voters. You're very vocal reply guys, but you don't show up on election day.
Yeah.
Wow, he's getting spicy here. He's getting spicy here.
Or here's an alternative theory. I had the better lineup.
Yeah, whatever, dude. All right, let's move on to this question.
I will say drafting foods has become like one of my highlights of the year, which is just a low bar. It's a very low bar on the year, but
it is insane how fun that was and how much chatter it created. Like we could throw out a lot of like Nuggets theories, and we'll get like a few people. We throw out.
They're not mad.
People throw out something about Cookout, and it's over. Whataburger gets involved. Like it's just.
I want to try Cookout. I'm excited. My theory though is, and this is, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I used to live in the South for a brief period. A lot of family down there, but they always brag like our food's the best. Like, yeah, it's drenched in queso and like.
Yeah, that's what's up, bro.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah,
that's what makes it the best.
I can't do that every day, guys.
I can't do this anymore because I'm still upset. A lot of election anxiety yesterday. A lot of voting anxiety. Okay, Connor asks us, these two things probably go hand in hand. Also, Connor, good luck on your midterm. I hope it went well when you watched this.
Crush it,
brother. Which is more important to you guys in the regular season? The 1 seed or a Jamal Murray All-Star appearance? Weedham, I'll go
to you. Well, theoretically, the 1 seed will come with real home court advantage this time. So I got to go with that. That's what's going to be. That's what's up. I want that 1 seed or that 1 seed, man. It means a lot, like to play in Denver.
Man, it's funny because I was just thinking, like, man, the 1 seed would be awesome, but there's so much pressure that comes with the 1 seed, especially if you get the like battle-tested play-in team that's like just came off a great win and they have some playoff momentum. So I put Jamal Murray because I'm worried of being in the 1 seed.
The Clipper. You don't want to be the Clippers next year.
Yeah, I don't want to be the team that everybody's like, well, the Nuggets are going to blow it. It's the
Adam's answer is that he's scared of success. He's scared of success.
I'm a coward.
LeBron's going to play 14 games next year. Lakers are going to be the 8th seed, and then it's going to be like,
God.
Wind, what about you?
I'd go 1 seed. Look, when you're playing in your home arenas, the Nuggets have the number 1 advantage in the NBA when we're talking home court advantage with the altitude. So I'd want that in the Western Conference Finals above a Jamal Murray All-Star appearance.
Alrighty.
What is your call?
What? Oh, do you want my answer?
Yeah.
You're on the show, right?
I like how you have some really like interesting lighting right now, some like noir lighting.
Yeah, it's really inconvenient. I picked the wrong spot for this home office. I can't even see the question. I'm trying to remember. I would rather see the Jamal All-Star appearance.
Really?
Yeah, because I think Jamal's that dude, and I'm done with the conversation.
So you're basically most of your takes today have been built off of arguments you can have online.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all in on Jamal. Like if you were asking me this about Jokic 2 years ago, it would have been such an easy oh yeah, Jokic for sure. And I'm getting there with Jamal, man. He's earned it. He's earned it from me.
Yeah, I want to see it for
Jamal rewarded.
I want me to be rewarded with home games.
Also a good point. The homie, the correspondent Miroslav, would the Nuggets be willing to part with Gary, as mentioned before, sign and trade Jeremy, and Ball, and a first for Jrue?
That's too much.
I think that's too much.
I don't get the Jeremy sign and trade. Like Denver, yes, they could get somebody at the mid-level to fill in a little bit, but they'd be screwed without Jeremy Grant next season. I really believe it.
And also, how badly is New Orleans interested in Jeremy Grant?
Yeah, he's not a fit next to Zion either, I don't believe.
And you got to pay him long term.
Jeremy's a 3. I'm telling you, he's a 3. For me, this was like we were having the conversation earlier, and I said I'm not talking about what I would do. I'm just talking about the value of a thing, and if those things are somewhat close, you can be like, okay, we overpaid. It's like the Millsap $90 million. Like, okay, we overpaid, but we would not have been a good team without him. I feel like, though, with this one, this is such an egregious, just in a vacuum value that it's like, come on, man. Like, what do we talk? Jeremy Grant, Gary Harris, a first. What else was there? It's like everything.
It was actually everything that you wouldn't want to. So, sorry, Miroslav. That's probably – I don't think they would. I don't think they would consider the Jeremy sign and trade, to be honest.
I don't know, man. To me, it's like that is more palatable because this front office is so lethal with their draft picks. And Noble, while he is like a tantalizing treat, and it looks like we might be able to get something out of him in the future, but it's like I literally don't know what I view Bull's long-term vision as a Denver Nugget is. Like is he a starter? Is he Boban? Is he you know what I mean? Is he a change of pace guy? Like what are we expecting to get out of him? And like, shouldn't we expect our first round picks to yield starters?
Yeah. I think the thing you're getting, maybe the thing I'm thinking about as we're talking about this is, it's interesting how we're talking about it now as opposed to 4 or 5 weeks ago, because I feel like this is the one thing that I think happens in this type of sports media these days, is we all pretend we're Daryl Morey. This is why Daryl Morey's still popular, because we all pretend, we're all using the trade machine to do this stuff, and we forget that like 8 weeks ago we were like, you know what, we're not the Lakers, hell yeah, like we're this fun team and it's our guys, and there's like this connection to it, and we're just doing this thing where we're like, what if we traded all of those guys?
I'm sorry, I should, Adam, because I know how this appeals to you. I really screwed Miroslav over here. I cut off the question. It was for Jrue and Lonzo, which I know is going to recalibrate.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize, Miroslav.
Whoa.
So if they slam you in the Serbian sports portals tomorrow morning,
yeah, what if we get every oversized point guard out of this deal? Like everyone in the league.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little concerned about adding Michael Porter, Bol, and Lonzo. Like we might be getting up from our limit.
Michael Porter, Bol, Lonzo, and Cole Anthony. Yeah, it's a lot.
What was the combo? It was JaVale McGee and who in Washington that like
Nick Young.
Nick Young, they were just like eating cinnamon all the time and like doing nothing but making TikToks of the day.
Yeah.
Might be the kid. A lot of rap battles and TikToks.
I like Lonzo, guys. I don't know if it's in the card. We'll see. I don't know if it's in the card.
Okay, this one comes to us from Grant Carey. We touched on this before, but apparently since Adam's cloaking all of his takes, or we were supposed to hold stuff close to the vest or whatever, I don't know how you all really feel. So I'm going to Grant Carey asks us, does a Nets package with Caris be any package the Nuggets would be willing to give up? Willing to give up is the key, I think, of that.
I mean, it depends on what New Orleans thinks. I'm not a Caris LeVert guy. Like, I'm just not. I think he's like kind of a Will Barton type.
So you're not a Will Barton guy. Okay. All right.
No, I am. But people are talking about Caris LeVert like he's like this soon-to-be all-star, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We heard what he said. It's fine.
Mares, you look like you know how you feel about this.
I just think Caris LeVert, like I don't know if it's because he's in Brooklyn or what it is. People are acting like he's the superstar. I mean, he's like a volume stat guy. He's a good player. I'm not trying to say he's not a good player. I'm just saying he looks like he's a really good. I always say this: you're either a plus star or you need to fit into a nice role. And I think Caris LeVert is a little bit of he's like a C- star to me, and I think people think he's like a high level role player. I just don't think that's his skill set. So
no, get out of here with that comment, Rob. I am in the Will Barton club. Do not twist what I just said.
I don't know, Harrison.
Do not twist what I just said.
This was live and it's being
what made Will Barton so good is exactly what Adam's saying. He learned how to fit into a role with Denver, and he played that role beautifully for these last couple of seasons.
Harrison's talking about analytics. I'm gonna tell my mind's business.
Yeah,
y'all can have it
mind your business, right? Yeah, like we're trying to hit some banners around here. Harrison, come on.
Or wait, it's the opposite.
See, this is the thing. I'm talking about. I don't mean to call you out here, beat sticks, but like, no, Caris LeVert is not as good as Brandon Ingram. I think Brandon Ingram might be a B star. Like, I don't think he's an A star. He might. I mean, he's young. He has time.
I think he's an A star.
What's that?
I think he's an A star.
I don't think he's an A star.
Yeah.
If you're an A star, I think you usually get into the playoffs, or
he's early in his career. Like he's gonna take over. Like there's gonna be a changing of the guard, and you're gonna be left with Brandon Ingram as like a top player in the league, and you'll be like, wow, that's an A star. And he's just coming into a time when we still have LeBron and Kevin Durant and all these players. Like I think he's one. I put him in. Remember, as one of my top 5 in the next 5 years.
Yeah, you were wrong.
Yeah, you were wrong. People have to remember, like, here's the A stars. Remember, everybody said when Jokic gets to the playoffs, he's going to get exploited because we're all going to see all the things he can't do and teams can actually scout him or whatever. That was not true because people didn't know what they were talking about. But there are players of that ilk where it's like, hey, and right now Caris LeVert has always ever been a good player on this crappy Nets team, and it's like, okay, nobody actually has to game plan. I mean, you're just going through regular season. He looks like he can do something, but I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. I don't like the skills. I don't love the skill set the way everybody seems to.
No, I don't either.
I do think though, like the way other people are seeing this is really easy to understand. Like Gary just had a horrible year. LeVert dropped 50, and it was all over social media, and like that's just the way most people who are distant from these situations sort of view this stuff. So I get it. I just think, I wouldn't sleep on the fact that like those types of Nuggets offers we were talking about might actually be a better basketball fit.
People also didn't just watch Donovan Mitchell average 50 points against the Nuggets until all of a sudden he didn't. We all forget this.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what?
Gary Harris comes back. He sits out the first quarter right of that game 6, and Donovan Mitchell still going off. So it's not like, well, he got tired. No, Donovan Mitchell was still on fire in game 6. Then Gary Harris checks in. The rest is history. Like Gary Harris is really good at a specific role. He's not an A role player. I think that's if he shot the 3 like he did 3 years ago, then he would be, but he hasn't. So I think that's what people connect to. But I think he's like a B role player. I think Caris LeVert is a C- star. People just value star no matter what grade you are, higher than role player no matter what grade you are.
Also, how old do you guys think Caris LeVert is? Just
27.
He's 26.
I was going to say 26.
Yeah.
Is he really?
It's not like he's 23. He's 26.
It's true. And some injury stuff there. Okay, let's move on. Try to soothe Adam here with the sound of his favorite music.
Good luck.
Can the Nuggets trade for Lonzo Ball? Is that possible? And do you think they could resign him? That comes to us from, wait for it, at Z lowercase s 38602590.
That's a Russian bot for sure. That's
Put in Jeremy Grant. Beat the Rockets.
The Russian bots are trying to influence the Nuggets front office. It's a whole campaign.
Adam, what do you think? Can the Nuggets trade for Lonzo Ball?
I mean, they can. Anything's possible at the moment. I don't think they will. I do wonder if Denver's going to look to move on from Gary and Barton, and that doesn't mean that they will move on from them. I just mean I wouldn't be surprised if Denver – I mean, I don't know. I still think Denver just runs back the same team. I've said that for the last couple of weeks. But if they were to move on from them, say that Caris LeVert deal you're talking about happens, is there a way that, okay, New Orleans wants to make more moves and get more things happening, and Denver says, hey, we like Lonzo, we can do this? Maybe. I don't think it will. I would put the odds lower than the odds have tanked on that deal, in my opinion.
I do think there's a high likelihood that New Orleans just trades Lonzo though, because he is up for an extension. I can't imagine that they're like jumping over themselves to pay him big money. He's a clutch guy. I could just see a scenario where they don't pay him and he's traded.
Isn't it funny how you can you're just like now a clutch guy, and that just says everything you need to know about a player. He's like, well, he's not interested in the team. He's trying to get as much money as he possibly
I'm not saying he's not interested in the team. I'm just saying like clutch guys, they have a hard line in the sand about what they want to be paid. And
it's going to be a real pain in the ass to retain.
That's what I mean.
The negotiations are ruthless with those guys. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. It's funny that like, when you become a clutch guy, that's a thing, but it's completely true. It's completely true.
Yeah, at this point, man. Did you see that? I want LeBron James at my workout day on national television. All right, let's keep it moving. Jeff Brink, big fan of the show. We always see Jeff around in the comments, and he wants to know, how do you guys feel about Nerlens Noel as a possible Plumlee replacement? I think he'd be a nice upgrade on both ends. Could even play some 4 next to Jokic. I'll tell you what, my friend TJ McBride is all in on this. He really likes Nerlens Noel as a backup 5. I mean, he's an athletic guy. He's a big. So if you're trying to add size on the interior, Wind, have you thought about that addition at all?
I haven't really thought about it, no, but I'd be cool with it. Nerlens Noel has had some decent games against the Nuggets, if my memory serves correct, over the last couple of years. So I'd like it. He's athletic. He can catch lobs. He's tall. I wouldn't mind it as long as it didn't cost really any money.
Free. Literally free.
Mars, do you have any thoughts?
To me, this is another one of those fans playing Daryl Morey role thing where the thing that was nice about Plumlee all these years was just how good of a fit he was, accepting the role and doing all these things. And Nerlens Noel, he held out. We remember he held out of that contract. He got a very good contract. I can't remember, $18 million or something, because he's like, no, I'm a star or whatever. I don't know that he's going to be like, oh yeah, I'll come and play the very extremely limited role that Denver needs me to play here. And I don't actually necessarily blame him. He's a good player. He had some upside. Maybe he can still recapture some of it. So, if these guys were robots, I would say, okay, maybe the skill set works, but I don't know that it would work out the way people are thinking.
D-Line, do you have strong Nerlens Noel thoughts?
He kind of reminds me of Jeremy Grant. A little, they have a similar body
really
type.
Long and lanky,
and played in Oklahoma City at one point.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia.
Well, I mean, clearly Oklahoma City had a type that they were after. They like that Jeremy Grant style.
Yep.
Nerlens Noel is a player that I remember was marketed pretty heavily when he came into the league. Yeah, he had that holdout with Dallas. He then got dumped.
I believe he's a clutch guy, actually.
Oh God, clutch guy. Well, there it is. There's the answer. No clutch guys. No clutch 2020. No, I mean, he's an interesting piece. He's not somebody that I necessarily covet, but I could see him absolutely filling that same role that Jeremy Grant just came to play.
I think Adam has a good point, though. It's backup center. You want a guy who, above all, is going to be perfect playing the role that you have carved out for him. That's the number one priority there. And also doesn't cost really anything.
Tillman stands just losing their mind right now at home. Just draft him at 22. So the last question, guys, I wanted to hit from Bronco Squatch. It's a good question. It's just sort of been the theme of the show in many ways. But to put it plainly, would you rather boost Denver's title odds for the next 2 to 3 years if you could with a win now type of move, or keep on that continuation route, but you try to keep that window open longer?
I'm going to jump in first here. 2 to 3 windows is the win now. if you said 1 year, that to me a win now move is like a 1 year window. A
Sure.
2 to 3 year window is as good of a window as you could ever hope for. I mean, we all want to believe that Denver has a 9 year title window or 5 year or whatever. It's just no, like you can't. It is almost impossible to see around 2 years in the NBA, let alone 3.
Right.
If you could somehow have a 2 or 3 year title window, of course you would take it. That's as good of a window as you can get.
So let me pitch this. Like, I mean, what if Jrue? Do we know that Drew's going to decline that option? That's a lot of money in an option. Things are precarious right now, right? So, I mean, I know we've talked about this deal to death, but if it was 1, maybe 2 years, are you inclined to take that push yet?
I mean, the sense I get from the Nuggets is that they're more willing to like push all their chips in now than they ever have been. And like Jrue Holiday on this team for the package that we've talked about, I don't think that makes you better than the Lakers team that we saw last year in the playoffs, but it makes you a much better team if you're Denver. I think it significantly bridges the gap. So in that sense, I think you do it if you're the Nuggets and you kind of jump at the chance.
The thing about the Jrue Holiday thing that we haven't talked about is if you're game planning for the Denver, most teams have like a good defensive guard and a bad one, or like a better and a worse. And it's a very easy decision if you're guarding Denver. The good one guards Jamal, the bad one guards Gary. If you have Jrue Holiday, because he's so different but also so talented, there will be teams that go, yeah, our good defender is just a little bigger, so we have to put him on Jrue because he's big enough to guard Jrue. And now our worst defender is on Murray because that's what we had to do. He's good enough that you have to think beyond that, and that alone is a pretty big. That's a substantial thing when you're talking about how other teams have to match up with you.
I also think like there's been so much. I mean, in that playoffs, like watching Malone try to figure out how do I get defense on the court, but without sacrificing.
Yeah.
Like I would still like a secondary playmaker out there, ball handler, and I mean Jrue is a near ideal sort of guy who could have guarded Mitchell, could have guarded Clarkson, maybe not to the effect that Harris did, but is a guy that you can ask to run pick and rolls more than just in a pinch, right? To make something happen and put the ball on the floor. So I just think it would probably be your best bet at avoiding that having to choose between one or the other.
Yeah, to me, it's like this is where like you have to look as a front office. Where do we see ourselves in this process? Like, are we to the point now where we have to fundamentally change what we're doing? Because, and did we always see this coming? Are we to the place where, are we going to become Philadelphia? Are we going to become like, because you can make that move and you can get Russell Westbrook, right? That like doesn't. It's a big move. It's splashy. You trade a lot of things to make it happen, and it still doesn't get you over the hump. It just is. It just feels like what you're supposed to do. And then there's moves like bringing in Kawhi Leonard for a year that literally push you over the top. Sure. And is that like, would Jrue Holiday be a slam dunk? Like, okay, like we feel very good that bringing this guy in absolutely pushes us to the next level. Like you feel like when you bring Kawhi Leonard in, like, I don't know that you do. Like, to me, it's in that case, you want to just maintain your level of excellence as long as you possibly can and continue to stock the cupboard and wait for that absolutely perfect deal. I mean, if this might be it, but to me, it doesn't feel like, to me, it makes us incrementally better. It doesn't make us like obviously the favorite.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think Denver's going to get to be obviously the favorite, man. I mean, if they're any shred of the favorite, that's like the best win.
Well, I know, but so in that case, like, let's just grow our guys. Like, what's the problem here? Like, so are we? If we're going to go make it to the Western Conference Finals last year with our homegrown guys, is Jrue Holiday going to push us over that? No. Okay, so maybe then do we just keep getting back to the Western Conference Finals until MPJ matriculates and then that's how to me that is the smarter path.
What we don't know is that it's a categorical no, right? Like the Nuggets were not a better team than the Lakers. It was a bad matchup, and I'm sure there are still folks at home that feel right now if a couple things went differently, that series was far more competitive than it was. So yeah, you can't make yourself the favorites. That doesn't mean you can't make yourself competitive, which is the name of the game. And the other thing, man, is while I would love to agree with you, and I think I'm inclined to in some ways, Eric, it's just linear progression is not guaranteed. It's just not. And so, like, you don't also have any guarantee that by sticking to the players you have at any point in the next 6 to 8 years that you're going to be the favorite anyway.
No, but you've seen your players play together, and you've seen them improve. Like, we don't know what Jrue Holiday on this team looks like. We have no idea if it works or not. And it's sort of like, is just Jrue Holiday's presence alone enough to say, like, okay, even if he doesn't mesh with these other guys, like, is he Mike Conley on the Jazz? Is he something else that, like,
right,
by bringing him in, the entire, all the sum of the parts gets greater. So,
not only that,
Eric, just has to be right. It just has to be right. They just can't go out on a limb to get a guy like Jrue Holiday.
Not only that, if the season does start on the 22nd, update on that in a moment. But if the season does start on that, and free agency is like the first, like, or the 23rd or 24th, I don't know, whatever free agency is, like, there's just, Malone is not going to have more than a week, maybe 2, to be like, oh, we have a drastically new offense. Let me make a new offense and defensive scheme. Like, the window for a coaching staff to mentally prepare for a completely different roster is even shorter. So that throws it. I bring that up to say, got a little nugget for you guys here. A little nugget here from Woj. And he's saying that it looks like the big part down here, NBA Players Association team reps meeting as soon as Thursday night, expected to get a consensus on approving December 26th.
Yeah.
Yep.
No surprise there.
We thought this was coming. Nice little nugget for you. Nice little nugget for you. It looked like we thought this was going to happen, and it looks like, okay, here we are. I think December 22nd is happening. We don't know for certain, but it looks like that meeting is going to take place Thursday, and right now, all signs are pointing towards yes vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right move, guys. I think it's the right move to try to get this thing going. There are smarter people than I who are committed to determining what the right move is here. So it's easy for me to say from a distance. I'd love to get the players all their rest, but I think you got to get the wheels turning here. And if you can get this season wrapped up at anything close to a normal time, that's a big, big win in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the expedited timeline that we were just talking about for the offseason, with Holiday, it's not as big of a deal as if you're adding like another like starter level piece, because Holiday, I just think, can fit in so seamlessly with what the Nuggets do on offense and on defense. I don't think it's going to take like a whole offseason of game planning to get him to fit into, what the Nuggets do on both ends. He's just that type of guy on the court and in the locker room too.
Yeah, but that was Mike Conley. Mike Conley was the perfect piece.
Yeah, but Jrue Holiday is going to be a game changer defensively. Even if his offense, even if he's not the same offensive player he was over the last couple of years, Mike Conley wasn't, but he was never like the stopper defensively that Holiday's been.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That comment just got me fired up. Yeah. In a way I haven't been for the
because there's only I don't know, 50 shopping days or something till Christmas. Like that's really, we're coming up on it, guys. Like the season might be here very, very quickly. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Exciting times in Nuggets Nation. I think this is what you would call a good problem to have. It could go many ways from here, but this is sort of where you want to be as a fan base. This is the name of the game. To get yourself in this position. So we'll keep our eyes on the Jrue Holiday news. We'll keep our eyes on that December 22nd start date. Harrison, you had a profile go up this morning, correct?
I did. Malachi Flynn, a point guard who seems to be getting a lot of buzz. Seemed like he started out as a second-round pick. Now it seems like he's creeping into the first round. I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. 6'1". He's 6'1" with a 6'3" wingspan. He's a great shooter, great in the pick and roll as a passer, but I'm just not high on him based on just kind of his frame. A really competitive defender as well, but just seems like a second-round guy to me at least. But in this draft, he seems NBA ready, so maybe that could creep him into the first round.
All right, so members can check out that full profile now on the DNVR.com. I'll be working on a Cole Anthony one that should be up in the morning. So you have plenty of distractions to get you through the next 48 hours. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the good questions. Comment section was fire as usual. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you on the other side of all this.